Now to our guest this afternoon, and we are joined from Beirut by Abdallah Neama, who is a political analyst, and Ahmed Younes, who is a researcher and political analyst. Also, thank you very much for joining us. I'll start with you, Abdallah Neama. After Israel's strike on the southern suburb of Beirut, which the occupation army claims targeted Hezbollah's chief of staff, how do you assess the message that Israel is sending behind this attack in such a densely populated residential civilian area?
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching. Of course, what happened yesterday, assassinating the assassination operation in the southern suburb. First of all, the timing is actually very, very important, and also what's more risky than the timing is that they striked without any warning. They striked a residential area, and we had around six who were killed and 20 something injured. And so yes, if this area was densely populated, I think that all the people would have been killed because of how aggressive the strike was. And so yeah, I don't think that this assassination was actually planned before. The Israel said that it has to do with diplomatic reasons, but I think yeah, it was a spur of the moment decision because such a strike. And then today also they send out pictures, um, uh, and they had like an X on their faces saying that they want to target them and kill them. And today Hezbollah has two problems actually. If they respond or retaliate, we will have a full-on war, and if they don't respond, then Israel will keep on with the strikes. And so I think this is drawing a new path basically because Israel is insisting and has a goal to end Hezbollah once and for all. They want to eradicate them. And today we saw the pictures that they have distributed, and they said that they want to kill them. And Israel, this has been their tactic. When they want to start a war, they start with assassinations because then the assassinations gets the war ignited. And I think that they are ready for a war in Lebanon. And I think that they have the green light from the US, and Iran knows this, Hezbollah knows this as well. But the problem here is things could escalate even more without any warning. Things can go south very quickly, especially after the assassination of the chief of staff. This is a declaration of war from Israel's side, and I think that Hezbollah may start attacking the 5 points because Hezbollah knows that Israel is going to keep up with the war, and that they are coming for Lebanon to end Hezbollah completely. And this is what the French president said the day before yesterday. This is his first statement of this type. He said that they will be will be dealing with the terrorist, as he said, group of Hezbollah. And we know Israel has some kind of cooperation between the US and France also, and the next weeks will be crucial. And I think the negotiations and the Egyptian president that they talked about before, and the agreement that was between the Turkish president and his Egyptian and Saudi Arabian counterparts. They talked about Sudan, Syria, and Lebanon. And I think here Israel is trying to stall this with the attack that they had, or start a new way to go back to war after negotiations are actually have become a dead end. And now Hezbollah, they know that they have reached the dead end, and so Israel is taking advantage of the time that of the current time. They want to attack Lebanon and eradicate Hezbollah. But we're very concerned about the second scenario, is that today Israel is trying to target and assassinate Hezbollah officials for a while now, and they are attacking Hezbollah of rebuilding themselves. And if they really did. And when the uh, commander was assassinated, and they keep on assassinating officials. This shows actually that Hezbollah hasn't rebuilt themselves and that they still have points of weaknesses. And
Indeed.
so,
I'm going to interrupt you there because I want to bring in Ahmed Younes, if that's okay. Abdallah Neama, they're saying that Israel is trying to ignite a war. Washington, of course, publicly says it wants to maintain the Lebanese truce, even as the occupation army escalates. What do you make of this contradiction in U.S. messaging?
Good evening to you and to your audience and to your guest. Thank you for having me in this interview.
Welcome.
First of all, we have to know that Washington does not want a second full-scale war to erupt while it is already deeply involved in the regional crisis. Any new war between Israel and Hezbollah would destabilize the whole Middle East and threaten the U.S. Troops in the region and disrupt the energy routes and weaken the American diplomacy. So the official American message is always we support calm and we want the ceasefire to hold. So, but at the same time, Washington gives Israel political cover, if we can say that, and military support, even when Israel escalates. This creates the contradiction that the U.S. wants stability, but it also wants to avoid pressuring Israel too strongly. So American policymakers believe that showing public pressure on Israel could cause a political backlash inside the U.S. And we see that this strategic calculation by allowing Israel to apply limited pressure on Hezbollah, Washington believes it can strengthen its negotiating position in any future deal on the Lebanese border. So the U.S. thinks that controlled Israel pressure might push Lebanon and Hezbollah towards compromises without crossing the line into full war. So this is a very risky approach, but it explains the gap between American rhetoric and the reality on the ground. So the contradiction reflects a classic U.S. method in the region, speak the language of diplomacy while tolerating the language of force. I think that Washington wants to appear as the responsible actor, calling for calm, while simultaneously giving Israel the freedom to shape the battlefield. So the result is mixed messages, public diplomacy versus private green lights, which is exactly why the Lebanese street and many regional observers see U.S. statements as inconsistent or insincere.
Okay, and Abdallah Neama, coming to you, do you think Israel intended to reshape the battlefield with this assassination? And you mentioned there Israel trying to ignite a war. Do you see this as the start of a new phase of confrontation? Okay, I'll give you that question again. Do you see this as a new phase of confrontation? I believe you're not hearing us, unfortunately. These things happen from time to time. I'm asking you, Abdallah Neama, do you see this? Do you see this as a new start, as a start of a new phase of confrontation? Okay, I think we're having a few issues there, so I'll come to Ahmed Younes. I'll come back to you. Israeli media is suggesting that Trump, going back to that contradiction there as well, Trump has privately endorsed Israel's harder line in Lebanon. What do you make of that, and how will this shape U.S. diplomacy in the coming weeks?
If Trump is privately supporting a tougher Israeli approach in Lebanon, so U.S. diplomacy will naturally shift closer to Israel's position. This means that Washington may become more accepting of Israeli pressure on Hezbollah and more willing to support stricter security demands along the border. So in practical terms, for example, American officials may speak of maintaining calm, but their actions will likely reflect Israel's harder line, especially if they believe it strengthens Israel's negotiating position. So this stance weakens America's image as a neutral mediator. So the Lebanese leaders, both in government and in Hezbollah, will see U.S. Diplomacy as biased towards Israel, in the side of Israel, I mean. As a result, they may be less willing to cooperate with the U.S. So cooperate also with the U.S. proposal or security arrangements. So when one side in a conflict feels the mediator is already committed, trust breaks down and negotiations become much harder. So this shift also means the U.S. diplomacy will focus more on pressuring Lebanon rather than balancing both sides. Instead of encouraging dialogue, for example, or gradual confidence building, the U.S. may adopt a more forceful approach, pushing Lebanon to accept certain conditions and strengthening also the Lebanese army under U.S. Guidance and supporting Israel's demands regarding the south. So diplomacy becomes, I think, more about enforcing outcomes than about finding a middle ground. So the U.S. move towards Israeli tougher line increases the risk of escalation, and the Lebanese actors may feel cornered or threatened, which can lead to miscalculations on the ground. So if tensions arise, the U.S. will have less room to act as a stabilizing force because it is perceived as aligned with Israel. So while a harder American stance may satisfy Israel in the short term, it can also destabilize the situation and make the region more unpredictable in the coming weeks.
Okay. And Abdallah, Neama, coming to you, the occupation armies declared that it will not allow Hezbollah to rebuild. What do you think Israel's end game is? I believe, once again, not hearing us. What's Israel's end game? I think I'll come back to you, Ahmed Younes. France and the UN have expressed concern over a slide into wider war. Are there credible diplomatic mechanisms left to prevent a regional explosion?
France and the UN still believe a wider war can be avoided because both sides, Israel and Hezbollah, understand the enormous cost of a full-scale conflict. So this gives diplomacy a small but real space to operate. Paris and the UN are focusing on keeping communication channels open with all parties, especially through the UNIFIL command in Nakura, which acts as one of the few neutral platforms where both sides can indirectly send a message or send messages and warnings. A second mechanism is back channel diplomacy, which France, the US, Egypt, and Qatar all use quietly. These channels allow Hezbollah, Israel, and regional actors to exchange messages without public pressure or political embarrassment. Such confidential contacts often help de-escalate dangerous incidents before they turn into a war. Even when official statements sound high, these private channels remain active in the background. A third tool is the commitment shaping, where major powers try to create incentives, political, economic, and security related for both sides to avoid escalation. So France pushes for international guarantees for Lebanon, while the UN seeks to update monitoring procedures along the blue line. These efforts, I think, cannot stop every attack, but they help set limits and prevent isolated incidents from turning into uncontrolled escalation. So all these mechanisms are fragile. A single large strike on miscalculation could overwhelm diplomacy. But as long as world powers, especially France, the US, and regional mediators, believe a broader war would be catastrophic for everyone. These diplomatic tools, even if limited, remain credible. They may not eliminate the danger, but they can delay and contain it, giving political actors time to step back from the brink.
Okay, I'm going to give you another try here, Abdallah. Neama, Haaretz is reporting that escalation in Lebanon serves Netanyahu's political interests and has Trump's blessing as well. How dangerous is this for Lebanon? Well, we gave it a try. Let's go back to Ahmed Younes, shall we? The Israeli attack has triggered fears of a spiral of retaliation. Do you think Hezbollah will respond?
Hezbollah is unlikely to respond with a large immediate strike because it knows that Israel is trying to drag it into a bigger war. So instead, the group will probably choose a measured and delayed response, something that sends a message without crossing Israel's red lines. This could include a targeted attack on military positions, the use of long-range drones, or symbolic operation along the border. So the goal is to show strength while avoiding a full confrontation. So Hezbollah now keeping silent and try to make a new equation that we are not serving Israel's agenda. Hezbollah choose the proper time to start or to defend or to respond. So Hezbollah will use a political messaging to emphasize that Israel is the one escalating. By doing this, the group tries to maintain support from the Lebanese government, the UN, and even European actors who do not want another major conflict. Hezbollah understands that the environment is very sensitive now, especially with international mediators active in Beirut. So its response will be carefully calibrated. So the Western actors, mainly France, the United States, and UN officials, will work behind the scenes to prevent the situation from turning into a cycle of constant retaliation. So they will pressure Israel to stop major strikes and urge Hezbollah to avoid dramatic responses. So these actors know that once the two sides fall into a strike and counter-strike pattern, stopping the escalation becomes almost impossible. So, however, Western diplomacy can only slow the cycle, not fully control it. If Israel launches another high-level assassination, or if Hezbollah's response causes heavy casualties, if we can say, so the situation could escalate very quickly. And for now, Western intervention is most effective in the gray zone, encouraging restraint, warning of the dangers, and keeping communications channels open. Whether it succeeds ultimately depends on the calculations of both Israel and Hezbollah, not the mediators.
And Lebanon has repeatedly called for international guarantees, hasn't it, to enforce the border agreement. Why do you think the international system has failed to provide those guarantees?
I think the international system has failed to provide real guarantees for Lebanon, mainly because the big powers are not united on what guarantees actually mean. Some countries want stronger pressure on Israel, others want stronger pressure on Hezbollah, and many simply want to avoid direct involvement. Without a common vision, the UN and major states cannot create a strong binding mechanism to protect the Lebanese border or prevent violations. So another reason is that enforcement requires political will and military capability. International guarantees would mean deploying more troops, giving UNIFIL stronger rules of engagement, or even creating a multinational force with real authority. None of the major powers, including the US and European states, are willing to take risks or confront Israel directly. So as a result, the guarantees, between brackets, stay on paper rather than becoming real actions on the ground. A third factor is the nature of the Lebanese file itself. The border issue is deeply tied to bigger regional conflicts. Iran-Israel tensions, Syria's instability, and US-Iran rivalry, because the Lebanese border is not an isolated crisis. The international system treats it as part of a larger geopolitical puzzle. So when global powers prioritize nuclear talks, energy issues, or Gaza negotiations, Lebanon becomes secondary, and guarantees get postponed or ignored. So the international system often focuses on managing crises instead of solving them.
Okay.
UNIFIL designed to monitor and report, not to enforce or punish.
Okay.
So the major Western states prefer temporary calm over long-term commitments, and Israel prefers flexibility over international restriction.
Okay, well, we shall continue to watch it closely. Thank you so much for joining us, Ahmed Younes, researcher and political analyst, joining us from Beirut. And I'd also like to thank Abdallah Neama, who joined us earlier as well.